Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and I'm recording this on August 1st. So good morning. As of right now, there has been a lot of activity that has happened in the Middle East in the last, 48 hours or so. So I want to kind of just do a review of what has been going on and where I think this is going geopolitically, how it may affect the US election cycle, and also how it potentially could affect markets. So just to recap really quickly here, in July, there was a leader in Hamas that was supposedly killed by the Israelis, the IDF, which has been confirmed back in July. There was also a bombing in Beirut, killing a Hezbollah leader. And then the next day, there was, or about 24 hours later, maybe a little bit more than that, the leader of Hamas was targeted and killed in Iran. So Israel has been really trying to chop off the leaders of Hezbollah and Hamas. Now the question is will this escalate into a larger scale war because what Israel did in Beirut and in Iran just recently? Now, what was the reason that they targeted the leader of Hamas in Iran? Well, they've been looking for this guy for a long time, and they were able to get him. The reason why they were able to get him was that he was traveling to do an inauguration with the new, or celebration with this new president in Iran, because the previous one passed away. So the Israelis, their intelligence agency was able to target him and kill him. It sounds like they used a drone to do it. So this opens up how deep can Israel target in Iran without them knowing about it. So Iran may feel as though they're threatened and that their leaders are threatened. Maybe, no one can prove it, but maybe the Israelis targeted also the president who, quote, died in that helicopter crash. Maybe. Who knows? Who knows? We don't really know. But it definitely makes the Iranian officials, the heads of state, to be concerned about the intelligence apparatus of the Israelis within Iran. So they may do a strike. Now, if they strike, this is most likely going to escalate. Now, what was the reason that Israel hit Beirut? Was because of the rocket hit on the soccer field in the Golan Heights. So this is starting to escalate. And as I have said, back in October, when, of last year, when this all started happening, I started recording this stuff, I think on the 10th, I think October 10th is when I started recording, maybe October 9th. But either way, shortly after October 7th, I said that if this continues, which it looked like it was going to, that this was going to be a larger conflict. This was going to be a conflict that involves a lot of different actors. And that means Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iran. At the time, I didn't think, Yemen would be involved, but the Yemen's involved now. And you have this Houthi enclave attacking shipping lanes. This is becoming a larger conflict. And that there's going to be a chaotic thing that happens out of this that leads to a larger border system that will end up coinciding with what was written in the Bible, that there are boundaries for Israel. Now, someone stated in the comments, oh, that there weren't. I think this was on Rumble, that there's not going to be a greater, a greater Israel. This term, greater whatever, greater Russia or greater China or greater US or greater Israel. This is a term that sounds like it's coming from Mearsheimer. So this term, greater Israel, there's not going to be a greater Israel. It's just going back to the boundaries that were written in the Bible. There's no like greater whatever, because this term greater, it's assuming that everyone is lockstep into Westphalian contemporary international policy. And we got to understand that is actually transient. Now, the transientness of it could arc through multiple generations, or it may arc only through one generation. In many cases, this whole Westphalian thing that we've had, it has arced primarily since World War I or World War II, depending on the country, but not necessarily true for all countries. There's been fluxes that have been going on. But this issue with the Middle East is been in the making for thousands of years, way before the UN or the League of Nations was even dreamt. So there isn't this greater Israel. It's just that it's going to mean revert back to the borders that were written in the Bible. And it's going to be through it's going to be through obviously force by the Israelis and conflict with its neighbors. And some may be allies that lose ground because this has happened in wars. A perfect example of what was going on during World War II. You could have allied forces that actually were losing ground. So in Europe, so you would at certain moments in time within World War II, so or even World War I. So you have this kind of like flux that is starting to happen. A good way to think about this is the borders of countries through Westphalian policy and a world order through the UN has solidified, somewhat frozen the border system. So it was what is called in international policy external enlargement. So they've frozen the external enlargement. And that if one country tries to increase its borders, increase its land, go through an external enlargement, that it's going against this policy that's been agreed upon since World War II, and that they're a negative actor within the global world order. All right. So what has happened through economics is what is more like internal, what is called internal enlargement, which is trying to gain power, not through adding border, but trying to gain power through technology or through other processes within a country. All right. So, but this order, this frozen order, through this Westphalian order, is starting to thaw. And now it's started in certain regions, it's becoming slushy. So it's not frozen anymore. 2 decades ago, it was more frozen. Right out of World War II, it was starting to freeze. But now, what we have now is in the Middle East, you're starting to see the border system for Israel is going to now get slushy. And because it's slushy, not frozen, what's going to happen is that the emergent behavior of war through some ally, Jordan's going to be an ally, Saudi Arabia is going to be an ally to Israel. But something's going to happen in such a way that east of the river, parts of Jordan own the east of the river. But part of that was actually in the Bible. Some of that region was promised to Israel. So Jordan, for this to work, Jordan actually has to lose land. Same thing, Egypt is going to have to lose land. And these are, quote, supposedly allies to Israel. Now, Egypt maybe is lesser of an ally than Jordan, but something is going to happen where land will be lost by the ally forces because of some sort of emergent behavior. All right. Maybe they're an ally and then Israel goes against them. Or maybe they're an ally and then all of a sudden Jordan decides to attack Israel. Or maybe one of the actors that are against Israel, like Iraq, or certain factions within a certain region of Iraq, start to attack Jordan, and Jordan loses ground, because I don't think Jordan's that strong. And then Israel comes in and takes. The point here is that the boundaries are now elastic. They're not frozen anymore, and that they can move now. Now they're moving around. All right. So this is not about, quote, a greater Israel. It's not. See, using the term greater Israel is like assuming Israel is moving into tanks and they're just pushing the border out. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that there's a war that's going on, and that there's an emergent behavior with these 7 different fronts that will move the border system closer to what was written in the Bible as what the promised land borders were. Now there's an interpretation exactly how the line, it's the way that the Bible states it. It's most of the border is described in points. Well, you can draw a straight line to a point, or you can draw a curvy line to a point. So, but the idea here is it's about points. So, so there is a little bit of interpretation of exactly where the borderline is, but this thing is this thing is emerging towards biblical, over time, biblical border system, what was promised to the Jews. All right. So it's not a greater Israel. That would be, they're getting into tanks and they're pushing into Saudi Arabia, and they're pushing, they're pushing into Iraq and Iran, and that's not what they're doing. Where it is it's basically taking land away from the Palestinians, and they're controlling the Golan Heights, trying to control the West Bank, control all of Jerusalem. And there will be a sliver of land that is the Gaza Strip. Now, people would say, well, that's just not fair. Well, you're in the mindset of a Westphalian world. The Westphalian world in the Middle East is collapsing. And until you realize that, you're not going to understand where this is going. Why do we assume that the Westphalian world is going to last forever, or the next 50 years, or 100 years? Fine. Because it was all set up based on certain premises, certain world powers, with certain economic prowess, and certain regions of the world having certain type of energy sources. That's changed. So this whole Westphalian world order type thing is kind of breaking apart, or not fully, but it's not as solid as it used to be. It's getting slushy. And because it's not solid, certain regions like the Middle East, especially the countries around Israel, that border system is going to change. Now, if Israel loses, Israel is going to lose land. If Israel doesn't lose, it's going back to the border system in the Bible. That's the premise. That's how I see this. All right. Ones that disagree, they're really focused on this whole Westphalian idea, which I personally think is collapsing in the Middle East. So, and we're just going to see this thing escalate more and more and more. I don't think this is going to just ramp down. Now, there is a, it's not going to be smooth sailing, and there's going to be lots of bumps in the road, and there's internal fighting within Israel, between the religious sect and the non-religious sect, between the military and the civilian population that doesn't want military action. There's factions that are going on in Israel, so it's not as clean. Then you have how much weaponry does Israel have to be able to sustain multiple front war? But the thing here is it's not about a greater Israel. It's just about a Israel that has been written down as a border system for thousands of years. Oh, we just throw that out. We just throw the Bible out. We just throw that all out. That was written thousands of years ago, and we're just going to forget about this relationship between man and a Godhead, and we're just going to just assume that the world order that is mentioned at the UN supersedes, supersedes the Bible. Yeah, it seems awfully arrogant from a humanist perspective. All right, that's extremely arrogant to think that. Yeah, so it's just keep in mind that the border system is fluid now, and that there could be an emergent property out of all these conflicts within the Middle East with Israel and the surrounding nations, where it's moving closer and closer to the actual promised borders in the Bible. Now, if people want to call that greater Israel, go ahead. But this greater Israel kind of stuff is a Westphalian concept. It's not a biblical concept. It should be just called biblical borders or Westphalian borders, not greater Israel. Because what that does is it allows you to frame it. Do we really think that the UN should be superseding God? And if so, we got much bigger problems than Israel cleaning house in terrorist zones, because you have the hubris of humanity. All right, with that said, what I want to do is play DW. What does Haniya's killing mean for a ceasefire in Gaza?
Paid for the assassination of Hamas's top political leader Ismail Haniyeh. He was killed in an airstrike in Tehran. Thousands have gathered in the Iranian capital for a funeral honoring the leader of the Palestinian Party and militant group Hamas. He was also the chief negotiator in talks aimed at reaching a ceasefire with Israel. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei spoke at the ceremony. Iran holds Israel responsible for the killing and has said that they will make Israel regret the move. In Tel Aviv, the Israeli War Cabinet met to discuss rising tensions. Israel has not confirmed or denied that it was behind the attack that killed Haniyeh, but it did announce that it was responsible for an airstrike on a suburb of Beirut that killed a Hezbollah commander. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sought to reassure Israelis that the country is ready to face down threats from both Iran and Lebanon's Hezbollah.
There are challenging days ahead of us. Since the attack in Beirut, threats have been heard from all sides. We are prepared for any scenario, and we will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a heavy price for any aggression against us on any front.
DW's Rebecca Richards is following developments from Jerusalem. I asked her how worried people are about retaliation from Iran.
Well, that's right. That is reporting coming from the New York Times to say that Ayatollah Khamenei has ordered a direct attack. They've certainly said publicly that they will be responding and retaliating, as you've just been reporting, against what they see as an Israeli attack. Of course, Israel haven't claimed responsibility publicly, although Benjamin Netanyahu did hint at it last night in his address to the nation, saying that Israel had handed a devastating blow to Iran's proxies in the plural. Because let's not forget, we're talking about 2 assassinations in less than a 24-hour period, one just hours before the Ismail Haniyeh assassination in Iran. One of the key commanders of the Hezbollah group was killed in Beirut, and Israel did claim responsibility for that attack. So Iran certainly saying that they will come out in defense. And, you know, it's hardly surprising. This was a very embarrassing blow for Iran that, let's say, Israel or that an assassination was able to take place inside on their sovereign soil. So they have little choice but to retaliate. Now, whether or not they do it on sovereign Israeli soil, of course, remains to be seen. There has been precedent of that. We saw that happen for the first time in April when Iran retaliated to another assassination that they believe Israel carried out. And they, sent hundreds of missiles and drones in to Israeli airspace. Most, of course, were shot out by Israel and its allies. But there's certainly precedent for that, and we'll just have to see how big an attack Iran are prepared to give Israel. But we are talking also, there are people talking about a 3-fronted or multi-fronted attack where all of Iran's proxies may coordinate, including the Houthis from Yemen and Hezbollah and Hamas as well. So we'll just have to see how big it is, and then, of course, what that means in terms of a wider conflict in the region.
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh was involved in the negotiations with Israel on a ceasefire in Gaza and the return of the hostages. What does his death mean for these efforts?
Well, Ismail Haniyeh was not just involved, he was really the chief negotiator, if you will. He was really the person in Hamas who had the strongest voice in terms of negotiating some kind of ceasefire. His death will certainly bring a blow to those negotiations, and that's what many people are saying, that he was considered the more moderate voice within Hamas, if you will, certainly when you compare him to Yahya Sinwar in Gaza, and that he was almost pushing or certainly more open to some kind of a ceasefire deal. Now, the Qatari and Egyptians, who have been very key negotiators in these ceasefire agreements, say that the killings will certainly be a blow to any deal, that there was a deal that Israel had sent back to Hamas after negotiations in Rome on Monday, and they were waiting for a Hamas response. Hamas themselves saying that they were very, very close to reaching some kind of agreement, though we don't know how close. But obviously this is going to deal a blow, and the Qatari Prime Minister yesterday taking to the social media platform X to question how can mediation succeed when one party assassinates negotiators on the other side. So quite a wry response, but certainly underlining what many people are feeling about the negotiations now.
We'll leave it there for the moment. DW correspondent Rebecca Richards in Jerusalem. Thanks so much. And let's bring in journalist Hazim. And let's bring in journalist Hazim Balusha, who spent a lot of time in Gaza before he had to leave. He joins us now from Cairo. Hazim, what has the reaction been to Haniyeh's killing in Gaza and the West Bank?
The most important part for Gaza is particularly is to end the war and to have an end of all daily basis suffering. After more than 9 months in such situation, all they care about is ending this war, and the reaction came as a result of that. The assassination of Haniyeh might delay or postpone reaching a deal. In the West Bank, it's a bit different. There is a bit of grief. They are not in direct impact of the situation, what's happening in Gaza. Of course, there is an impact of blockade and pressure from Israeli army, but the situation and the impact is in Gaza.
How big a blow is this for Hamas?
It is big, no doubt about that. Hamas officials said that out loud. Haniya was the top leader of Hamas, but it's good to mention that he's not the top influential person. I mean, if we talk about the situation and the war in Gaza, the military wing is the most powerful part or body that influence the war in Gaza currently. But it would be a political problem for Hamas, and it will be a debate over who's gonna replace him.
So who is going to replace him?
Well, according to the Hamas law, Haniya got 3 deputies. One of them already killed. One in Gaza City is Yahya Sinwar, who's not available and he's underground. He's busy with the war. The second one is the Saleh Al-Arouri, who was killed in Beirut earlier. The third one is Khalid Mash'al, who's in Doha and who's the former top leader of Hamas before Haniya. So according to the law, one of the 3 deputies should take the place, but that is not necessary. Maybe some changes would happen because many other parties would influence that. I mean, the hosting country like Qatar, Iran, the supporting country, would influence if they are in favor of Khalid Mash'al or not. Other parties like Egypt or other Arab countries who is interested of the Palestinian issue. So it's not crystal clear about that who's going to replace him, but according to the law, most likely would be Khalid Mash'al.
Where would that leave ceasefire negotiations then between Hamas and Israel?
Well, the negotiations is in already before the killing of Ismail Haniya was in hard position and was in deadlock somehow. There was no agreement between both sides, Hamas and Israel. But of course, the assassination of Haniya would make it more complicated. I would expect that the negotiation would be postponed for some time, as it happened before when Saleh Al-Arouri, the deputy, was assassinated in Beirut before, but it would be resumed eventually. But the question is like how and when, and if the 2 parties are ready for reaching a deal. So that is the most important. So the negotiation now is in hold, of course, for some time, but it's not the end. It would be resumed because there is no other option.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Journalist Hazem Balusha in Cairo. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Before we go on with that
Imran.
video, please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 7 channels. I have 4 YouTube channels. All the links are in the description of this video. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel. Links in the description of this video. And you can also donate on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. The links are on my homepage on my website. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products I have. I have structural nano silver soaps. I have different varieties of these soaps. This will neutralize pathogens. It's a very high quality soap. So please get a few bars for your household and help support my work. In addition, I sell the best toothpaste that you can buy, right? This is a structural nano silver toothpaste. It has no fluoride in it. Fluoride makes you stupid. Make sure you filter your water because fluoride hurts your body. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver toothpaste. This structural nano silver toothpaste will neutralize pathogens, whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, reduce that gum irritation. When you're reducing that gum irritation, that means that you're reducing the chances of a receding gum line. It's also, by doing that, you are rejuvenating your gum line and it'll look younger. You look at people's gum lines that are older and they're not as well preserved. So it's important to use this toothpaste. In addition, good oral hygiene reduces the chances of cardiovascular disease. It's not the only way to reduce cardiovascular disease, but good oral hygiene is really important. Someone that has bad oral hygiene, they'll have cardiovascular problems because there is going to be bacteria and plaque, microscopic plaques can get into the bloodstream and cause inflammation in the actual vascular system. But bacteria can also start to create havoc on your valves of your heart. So you can get valvular disease with poor oral hygiene. So it's really important to have good oral hygiene. This structural nano silver toothpaste is the best toothpaste that you can get. Now, get a few tubes of this for your household and you'll be happy. And, you know, you're doing wonders for your body. I also have structural nano silver gels. This is a skincare product and it also helps to neutralize pathogens. So you can put it on your skin and leave it on the skin. Let's say you put it on right before you go to bed and then exfoliate in the morning. You'll notice that your skin is clearer and tighter, especially on the face. In addition, you can put this on an abrasion or a cut or a minor burn and it'll help heal it quicker. It'll also help heal some acne. In addition, because it neutralizes pathogens, you put it on your hands, you put it around your mouth, around your nose, around your eyes, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils. It'll stay active for 5 hours and you're neutralizing pathogens. This is very important, especially during the cold season. So this is a dual purpose product. So please go to the store and get the silver gel. You can also get it in a dispenser that's easy to carry in your bag, the silver gel in the dispenser, but you use it basically the same way. Both of these products are dual purpose. So please go to the store and get the silver gels. With that said, let's continue with DW.
Is vowed to take revenge for the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. The assassination was a massive security breach and a huge embarrassment for Iran's leaders. Any retaliation could come in several different forms.
What could a response from Iran look like? And how far does Tehran really want to go? Tensions in the Middle East were already high after Israel's assassination of Hezbollah's top commander, Fawad Shukur, in Beirut. Both incidents have intensified calls by Israel's enemies for retribution. But experts say Iran's leaders want to avoid a war with Israel, and an outright attack seems highly unlikely. Backed by the United States, Israel has formidable resources at the ready, including an army of some 170,000 active duty soldiers. It also has an advanced air force with some 200 fighter jets, plus the well-tested Iron Dome rocket defense system. Iran could also ask its proxies in the region to step up their activities. Hezbollah could launch a massive barrage of missiles at Israel from Lebanon, similar to the one Iran launched in April. That unprecedented attack of some 300 missiles and drones was largely repelled, but some managed to penetrate the Iron Dome system, causing damage inside the country. Last year, US intelligence estimated that Hezbollah has over 100,000 rockets at their ready. Hezbollah could also carry out a strike on civilian targets within Israeli territory. This is a much less likely possibility.
I think it's important to mention, and I'm sure many people that are listening to this video know this, but it's important to mention, Hezbollah is more mechanized, more armed, more experienced than Hamas. Now, the terrains are different, the experience of the enemy are different, comparing Hamas and Hezbollah. But Hezbollah is much more experienced, more trained, and they're in a different terrain than the Gazans. So Hamas was difficult to root out, but it was an urban warfare. So that it's difficult, but Hamas wasn't as well trained or well mechanized. Hezbollah, that's a different type of war, and that's going to be problematic for Israel. Now, Israel has been in Lebanon before, and it didn't, it was kind of like their Vietnam in a way. But there is a change in warfare now, and we saw it with Ukraine, and that is the use of drones. So that adds an extra dimensionality to the battlefield. Now, whoever dominates in drone warfare, I think will dominate in this region. Now, the Israelis might be able to dominate in this. Maybe not. I'm sure that the Iranians have good drone technologies, and that they are selling them or giving them to Hezbollah. So Hezbollah is probably going to be armed with good AI technologies. The question is Israel's AI drone technologies better? Who knows? But we're seeing the emergence of drone warfare, AI drone warfare, which may be that extra technological innovation in warfare that tips the scale in Israel's favor. But again, this drone warfare can also probably go underneath the radar of the Iron Dome and hit Tel Aviv. Now, hitting Tel Aviv would be like hitting New York. So, and it would galvanize the people even more to fight, to fight a northern front. So that's part of the calculus. Do they hit Tel Aviv or not? But the point here is that these things can escalate. A miscalculation can happen, and you can see in how these border systems can radically change, right? Because of changes in warfare technology and miscalculation of what to hit and all this stuff. So this is probably going to be an AI drone kind of test thing that's going to be going on in the northern front. AI has been mentioned in targeting Hamas in Gaza, but now I don't think there's so much of AI directing, social learning, autonomous drone kind of technology for warfare in Gaza. I don't think that was happening. Targeting individuals, geolocating, artificial intelligence kind of algorithm type stuff. I think it was called Predator, the Google program that they were developing. Maybe I'm wrong with that. I'd have to look that up. But Lebanon and Syria, this northern war, and even parts of Iraq with Israel, this might be like a test bed for this AI drone warfare. We're seeing a little bit in Ukraine, where they're flying a drone and they're attacking tanks. And tanks are very vulnerable with these types of technologies. But I think this is going to be used in a different way. And the problems that Israel had when they were in war with Lebanon before, some of these problems may be mitigated with this AI drone warfare. But the point here is that Hezbollah is better trained, better armed than Hamas.
But a much more serious one. An attack of this kind would almost definitely lead to an even further escalation. But Iran's retaliation won't necessarily happen on Israeli soil. Aside from Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iran backs a number of allied militant groups across the Middle East, in Iraq, Syria, Gaza, and in Yemen. Tehran is now already encouraging the Islamic resistance in Iraq, a coalition of militias, to step up its attacks on US targets there after months of calm.
And so
And in the Red
So it's
Sea,
not just the sphere of Israel, but also the sphere of the United States. And these isolationists in the United States, thinking that we can be just not help Israel or whatever. At the moment, we are tied at the hip with Israel, in this problem, and a big part of this is oil. The world rotates on oil. The world economy rotates on oil. It's not nuclear. It's not. It's oil.
Houthi rebels have been carrying out attacks on ships it claims are linked to Israel since the beginning of the Gaza conflict. The assassination of Ismail Haniyeh puts Iran in a difficult position. How to respond in a way which shows strength and restores deterrence, but at the same time avoids an all-out war with its sworn enemy, Israel.
And let's get more on this from DW's Middle East analyst, Shani Rozanes, who joins me now in the studio. Shani, good morning.
Yes.
What will be the main goal of any Iranian response?
Well, of course, they need to show strength. They want to build deterrence against Israel because this seems like an unabashed, attempt at Israel to on Iranian soil, on Iranian sovereignty. So, of course, they would want to do that. They want to show that they're strong. They cannot keep face of the world, especially wanting to be seen as the strong, fighters for the Palestinian cause. They need to show that they bend the blood of Haniyeh and also don't let Israel tread over their, sovereignty. And this is exactly how you do that. How do you strike this balance? Because so far, Iran has tried, despite, its strong alienation with the Palestinians and the support to the Palestinian cause through Hamas, it also tried to distance itself in a way not to be directly involved. And now it will try to strike a balance of how to send that message without bringing to a wider escalation.
And what about Hezbollah? Can one expect a response from the group? And if so, what sort of a response should one expect?
Well, I think in a way there's a bit of a relief for Hassan Nasrallah. He will be speaking later today. We will hear what exactly he wants to say following Fuad Shukr's assassination. But knowing that this is a bigger problem and now the spotlight is on the backers, the Iranians, of course, that helps him get more time to get his response in order. But it's no doubt in Israel there's far more concern about the northern border, that means the response from Hezbollah, than from Iran. Mostly because it's just much shorter time and much shorter distance. Israel has very little time to respond to any attacks from Hezbollah. Hezbollah is considered to be the best armed proxy Iran has in the region, with over 150,000 missiles in different ranges. So when Hezbollah decides to attack, it can be very deadly. Well, what we've seen from Iran in April is that Israel had much longer time to respond, and eventually also the attack was more than 99% of the barrage was, Israel managed to stop.
We're talking about expected attacks and responses from Iran and also Hezbollah potentially at the same time. I mean, whatever these responses are, will it prevent an all-out escalation into a wider regional war?
Oh, it's yet to be seen. We need to see exactly what happens on the ground. And we also need to keep in mind, if we rewind a bit, partially why we're here is because there was an attack on the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights that killed 12 kids in a soccer field. And this is probably a mistake. And this is what happens when you engage in war. You can plan what you want, but you don't always control the result. And Israel has this rule that it responds according to the result, not according to the intention. This is why we've seen also a very tame response to the previous attack from Iran in April. So yes, it could be that all sides do not want to see escalation, but only want to show deterrence and keep this game of balancing reactions. But a mistake could happen, and that could maybe lead to an escalation, taking things out of hand.
Shall you stay with us? Just to remind our viewers, the visuals that they're seeing on their screens right now are live visuals coming from Tehran. This is the funeral procession of Ismail Haniyeh, the top political leader of Hamas. That's happening right now in Tehran. And as we were talking, Shani, we were talking about de-escalation. There are now many calls for de-escalation, including from Germany. DW's chief political editor, Michaela Hüfner, spoke with Defense Minister Boris Pistorius about that.
Currently, there's a huge concern that there could be an all-out war in the Middle East after the Hamas leader was killed in Iran, Mr. Haniyeh, but also a leading member of Hezbollah. Your American counterpart, Lloyd Austin, says that the war could be prevented. What is your assessment at this moment?
Well, of course, Lloyd Austin is right. It can be prevented, but it needs to be prevented because nobody can wish or can even imagine a further escalation in the region. We don't need it. We don't want that, and we have to try everything to make influence available to all actors in the region, not to escalate, and pay attention to de-escalation and to do everything for getting peace back in that region as soon as possible.
What does this mean for German weapons deliveries, weapons commitment towards Israel, but also for Germany's participation of UNIFIL on the Lebanese border?
UNIFIL is not touched at the moment. We continue, we proceed with our engagement over there. Of course, we assume the situation every day, every hour, but we stay there and we won't make only national decisions over there.
There was a German defense minister there speaking earlier to DW. Shani, who can in effect exert any influence in the current situation to prevent further escalation in the region?
When we talk about Israel, is definitely the Americans. That's where you have most of the leverage. And you know, we were just hearing the German defense minister. Germany and America by far more, are the main suppliers of weapons and for Israel. You know, they have a lot of leverage they can use there. And we've been seeing a lot of efforts from Europe and the US. When it comes to Lebanon, there's a very great fear that any confrontation that will lead to direct attack on Lebanon is just going to be too devastating for this already frail country. So this is where the focus is on. But when it comes to Iran, I think it's very hard to know who can even, you know, exert any leverage there. I think it's, you know, I think what Israelis were counting on when they initiated this was the assumption that that Iran, as a rational player, will have zero interest in actually an all-out war and a wide escalation. We will have to wait a little longer to see if that assumption is in any way correct.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Shani Rodanis, thanks so much for coming to the studio for that.
All right, so that's DW on the killing of the Hamas leader. I want to go to CNN here. They just published this about an hour ago. But before we do that, before we go to CNN, this is PNN, and I need to do a commercial. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver liquids that I have. I have different types. I have this one in a 30 ppm. I have the max 14 in a 14 ppm parts per million. I also have max 35. What you do is you take a teaspoon of this a day, you just swish it in your mouth, you gargle with it, and you swallow it. What that's doing is it's neutralizing pathogens and improving your mucosal barrier, improving your gum line, improving your oral hygiene. And when you're doing that every day, you're lowering your chances of getting sick. Now, the whole idea here is that people don't realize that when people get sick, they may be, let's say they get a cold, the common cold, they may be getting the common cold and it lasts for about a week or so, but it takes weeks, about 3 to 4 weeks for it, especially if you had a cough and a respiratory infection. It takes weeks for the body to heal. Now, if someone gets, a sickness like a common cold 2 or 3 times a year, you're talking about 4 weeks per cold incident, right? per episode times 3. That's 12 weeks to go from contraction to actually healing over those 3 time periods within that year. That's 12 weeks of the year. That's so the point here is it's not just the duration of the symptoms, it's the duration of the healing. Now, if you don't contract, if you don't get sick as often, your body is less inflamed. When your body is less chronically inflamed, you heal faster, you have a better immune system, you have lower pro-inflammatory cytokines, and your body ages slower. So it really is in your benefit to follow what I'm saying. And the compound effect of this is why anti-aging happens, why you're slowing down the aging process. And not just that, you have more vitality because you're not chronically inflamed. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver liquid. Take it every day. Take a teaspoon of it a day. I take a teaspoon of it a day. If you're not feeling well, you're starting to get that feeling of a cold or whatever, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. All right, and you want to swish it in your mouth, gargle with it, and swallow it. All right, and I have a great multivitamin that's easy to digest. It's important to take a multivitamin because it has cofactors for your enzymes, and when these cofactors will allow for your enzymes to act and be more efficient in its cellular processes. So go to my store and get the multivitamin. It's easy to digest. It's a very high quality vitamin. All my products are high quality, and take this every day. In addition, during the allergy seasons and during the cold season, it's important to stock up on lozenges and drops. So I have elderberry and zinc lozenges in a 21 count. Get a couple bags of that for your household. I also have drops in a 100 count, and the flavor is honey and lemon and blueberry. So get a couple bags for your household and be ready for the cold season and the allergy season. The moment you are feeling that little irritation, you want to use the lozenges or the drops, because what that does is it's neutralizing the pathogen and creating secretions around antigens that are, by doing that, you're protecting that mucosal barrier, and you're lowering the chances of contracting something worse. So it's really important to to be prepared, to be stocked up. This cold season probably will be a little bit more problematic. If the epi curves of different things that are floating around out there continue to elevate. So please take my advice and get the lozenges and the drops, stock up, get a couple bags for your household, and just be ready. All right, because you want to attack it. You want to attack the irritation right away. That's the key. Because like I said, if you contract something, even if it's benign, even if it's somewhat benign, like a common cold, and you have it for a week, it takes weeks for the body to truly heal pre-contraction of the common cold. All right, so doesn't it make more sense to just mitigate it with the things that I'm telling you to take? So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Remember slaying Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh as the Middle East region remains on edge. Iran observing 3 days of mourning for Haniyeh and his bodyguard, who were killed in a pre-dawn strike on Wednesday in the Iranian capital. Iran and its allies are vowing retaliation against Israel, which is neither confirmed nor denied being involved. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation on Wednesday, saying Israel had delivered crushing blows to its enemies. He said Israel would not give in to calls to end the war in Gaza. Well, separately, Israel is confirming that its fighter jets killed Hamas's military chief, Mohammed Deif, in a strike in Gaza in mid-July. The IDF released this video. At least 90 Palestinians were also killed in that attack. Right, we've got CNN reporters standing by with the very latest. CNN reporters standing by with the very latest. Ivan Watson is in Beirut. Let's begin with Jeremy Dunn, who is today in Haifa in Israel. And Jeremy, Israel confirming the death of the Hamas military chief. This is hugely significant, not least on the same day that we are witnessing funerals of two other Israeli enemies, one confirmed killed by Israel, the other dead in Tehran, likely at the hands of the Israelis. What can you tell us?
Yeah, no doubt about it, Becky. I mean, the images that we are seeing today of that memorial service for Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, the funeral that will happen today in Beirut for Fuad Shukr, the Hezbollah senior military commander, and then now the Israeli military confirming that strike nearly 3 weeks ago that targeted Mohammed Deif, Hamas's military commander. All of those coming on the same day just paints a really powerful picture of what the Israeli military and perhaps its intelligence services have been able to accomplish from their standpoint over the course of just the last few weeks. These are, as the Israeli Prime Minister described, some quite crushing blows to Israel's enemies. And obviously the Israeli Prime Minister and the military want to paint this picture of victory at a time when they don't have a ceasefire deal. They haven't gotten the hostages out. And the Israeli Prime Minister obviously looking for victories, which explained the speech that he gave yesterday. But there is also just a very real reality of these military accomplishments on the ground and the extent to which it obviously delivers not just a picture of victory, but some quite significant achievements for the Israeli military and its government. What it also does, of course, is significantly raise the temperature in a region that is already very much on edge. The Israeli Prime Minister acknowledging that himself in his remarks last night, saying that these are challenging days and that Israel is prepared for all scenarios. At this stage, there are no changes yet in the Home Front Command guidance, which is issued to civilians to let them know whether to increase their state of alert, their state of readiness for the potential for military action. But there's no question that we have seen reporting from the New York Times, for example, that Iran intends to strike back at Israel directly for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in the Iranian capital. There's clearly a heightened state of readiness, a heightened state of alertness from the Israeli military itself, as we wait to see whether or not this very combustible region will in fact combust in quite extraordinary fashion, perhaps.
Well, let's get our viewers some images then of what we have been witnessing in Tehran, in Iran today. Ivan Watson, who is in Beirut, monitoring the situation there. What are we seeing? Just explain what's going on.
The Iranians have been showing the highest kind of respect for Ismail Haniyeh, the political chief of Hamas. There's been a funeral procession from Tehran University to Tehran's Azadi Square. Prayers led by the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We've seen images released of several of Haniyeh's surviving sons, two of his surviving sons, embracing his coffin, mourning. It's expected will be transferred, his remains, from Tehran to Doha, where he has been based for years now as a guest of the Qatari government for his ultimate funeral. I mentioned the sons in part because Haniyeh, two of his sons and several of his grandchildren were killed in an Israeli strike in Gaza several months back. The Iranian government vowing retribution and revenge for the assassination of Haniyeh. We still don't have a lot of details about how this was carried out overnight between Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. And of course, Israel has not claimed responsibility for it, but all fingers are pointing towards Israel for this. And Iran has also been pointing the finger at the US, arguing that the US is Israel's most important patron, supplier of weapons and funding, and claiming that Israel could not have done this without US support. The line that has been coming out of the Biden administration, out of its top diplomat, Antony Blinken, has been a warning of the threat of war in the region, and saying that a ceasefire is more important now than ever. In Gaza, that's ringing on somewhat deaf ears, with the Prime Minister of Qatar, which has been a chief mediator in the months of talks between Israel and Hamas, aiming at a return of the hostages. Qatar saying, how do you have negotiations when the partner at the negotiating table, Ismail Haniyeh, has just been assassinated? So real questions about the future of any attempt at a negotiated settlement here. Meanwhile, I'll point to here in Beirut, some diplomacy underway. The defense and foreign secretaries of the UK are currently here. They've been meeting with Lebanon's caretaker prime minister. Also, importantly, with the Speaker of Parliament, Nabi Berri. He's a Shiite Muslim politician, leader of the Amal movement, and seen as an interlocutor with Hezbollah. And the British officials have been trying to also push diplomacy at this time of extreme tension in the region. Nabi Berri saying that, quote, Lebanon doesn't want war, but is prepared to defend itself. Meanwhile, we're waiting for the beginning of a funeral for Fuad Shakr. That's that senior Hezbollah official who was assassinated on Tuesday evening here in the southern suburbs of Beirut by an Israeli airstrike that also killed at least 5 other people, including 2 children and 2 women. We're anticipating a speech from the head of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, to try to gain some insight about what the Iran and its allies in the region may do in response to these assassinations. So we're waiting to hear what kind of messaging they will want to send, as there are vows of vengeance coming from Tehran. Becky.
It's good to have you both. And again, let's just perhaps underscore the importance of what we are seeing today. The Israeli Prime Minister describing a position of strength in suggesting that Israel is getting rid of its enemies. We see the split screen of these 2 funerals, one in Tehran, in Iran, and one, of course, in Beirut. And that is what we are looking at here, the funeral of the Hezbollah senior leader, killed by Israel, assassinated by Israel over the weekend, and on the day that we get the announcement from the Israelis that Mohammed Deif has been assassinated, the leader of the military wing of Hamas.
All right, let's take the Fox News perspective.
Want to trade Bitcoin, plus oil, plus gold, plus so much more? Let me introduce you to Plus 500, the intuitive news alert, the IDF.
But before we do that, I have to do a commercial. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the supplements that I offer and follow my protocol to slow down the aging process and to boost up your immune system. When you do that, you're going to have more vitality. Some products that you should be getting on my store are the omega-3. The omega-3 helps with your lipid profile. This will lower LDL and help with increasing HDL. That will help with your cardiovascular system. And omega-3 is used to prevent the red blood cells from sticking so much. So please go to the store and take the omega-3 every day to improve your cardiovascular health. Magnesium and zinc is very important to boost up your immune system. So please go to the store and take magnesium and zinc, this magnesium and zinc every day. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose of this, right? To help boost up your immune system. And resveratrol. Resveratrol can get rid of senescent cells. It's an antioxidant, and it couples really well with C60. All right, so this is part of a way to slow down the aging process and to get your cells in proper homeostasis for energy production, right? Because mitochondrial health is really important. So C60 is a very strong antioxidant. So you can get this in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. either in extra virgin olive oil, coconut oil, or avocado oil. You take a teaspoon of it a day, and that will soak up the free radicals. And by soaking up the free radicals, you're going to have less cellular stress and tissue stress, and those cells and tissues will perform better. In addition, it'll help to boost up the health of the mitochondria. When the health of the mitochondria is increased, you're going to have more ATP, so you're going to actually have more energy when you're taking this. Take this on an empty stomach for better absorption. And if you work out, take it before your workout, because your recovery time will be quicker. Because when you work out, you're actually creating free radicals, and you want to soak those up. So take a teaspoon of this a day. I take a teaspoon of this a day. So go to the store and get the C60, either an avocado, extra virgin olive oil, or coconut oil. And this is synergistic with different things that I offer on my store, such as the clarity factor, because your brain has neurons, and those neurons have lots of mitochondria. Well, if the mitochondria aren't as healthy, then you're not going to have the ATP to shoot off those neurotransmitters, and your thinking will be slower. So you want to boost up the health of your neurons, right? And the connections of the neurons. So the C60 will help with reducing the free radicals in neurons and help with boosting up those mitochondria in those neurons. Clarity factor will get rid of that brain fog and allow you to clearly think for work and for school. And even if you don't work or go to school and you're older and you're retired or whatever, it's important to be taking this every day, because what this is doing is allowing those neurons to be firing and keeping those dendritic connections to allow for your neural network to be faster. People slow down in their cognitive function because of this recession that takes place between neurons. And you want those neurons firing. The more they fire together, the stronger the connection is for that neural network. So take clarity factor every day, learn new things, get a lot of rest, be well rested, get into REM cycle for your sleep, and you're going to improve that memory, and you're going to be improving those neural connections. So please take the clarity factor. This is a great product, and you'll notice that you're thinking better, faster, your memory will be better. And it's synergistic with C60, because the C60 brings down those free radicals and helps to improve the mitochondrial health.
Confirming just moments ago that Mohammed Deif, the top military commander of Hamas and the so-called Osama bin Laden of Gaza, has been eliminated, killed in this airstrike in mid-July. The news comes as Iran is reportedly ordering an attack on Israel over the death of top Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh. Iran's supreme leader posting on X, quote, "Following this bitter, tragic event which has taken place within the borders of the Islamic Republic, it is our duty to take revenge." Rebecca Heinrichs is a Hudson Institute senior fellow, and she joins me now. Rebecca, let's start with this breaking news. What is the significance of the death of Mohammed Deif?
Well, look, the IDF said that 3 things must be accomplished before it can finish its assault. One of them is to take out every single individual who is responsible for the planning of the October 7th massacre. So it said it would do that, and clearly it has been successful. What it demonstrates is Israel is able to specifically identify, even in Gaza, where these leaders are, and then with precision, take them out. So this is a significant kill on the part of the IDF, and it's really important as they carry out their military campaign.
And of course, Iran vowing revenge for the killing of Haniyeh. What does that threatened revenge look like if Iran ultimately is successful in executing it?
Well, we don't know what the Iran regime is going to try to do. I think that this particular attack is very remarkable because it demonstrates that the IDF can reach out even in Iran, that Israel's enemies are not safe anywhere, including the Iran regime cannot provide protection of these individuals. And Hania was there because of the Iran regime's new president's inauguration. So it's really, it shows that the Iran regime is not powerful enough to keep these individuals safe. And so now we're going to wait and see how Iran regime responds. But obviously Israel's preparing for the worst, even though the Iran regime retaliated the last time Israel reached in and took out a terrorist inside Lebanon, that the regime really responded in a way that Israel could deal with. They could intercept them with their missile defense system and then respond at their choosing.
Does the U.S. need to be on guard for anything specifically in response to this attack by Israel?
Well, the United States should always be on guard because the Iran regime in particular views the United States and Israel as one and the same. We are the big Satan and Israel is the little Satan in their eyes. And so there's a lot of bluster. Remember, part of what Israel has done for the United States is to demonstrate the Iran regime is not as powerful as we thought that they were. That Israel, a small country, is a mighty country, very powerful, and isn't afraid of what the Iran regime might do in retaliation as Israel seeks to take out its enemies. And so the United States should really take some courage from Israel and permit Israel to respond in this way, provide the diplomatic support that Israel needs, provide the military backing that Israel needs to permit Israel to finally finish the job.
So where's the White House in all this, Rebecca? Here's John Kirby with somewhat of an answer. Listen.
We don't want to see an escalation, and everything we've been doing since the 7th of October, we've been trying to manage that risk. Those risks
I'll tell you,
down
when
every
it
day.
comes to Kirby and Blinken, I just find them just to be idiotic. Just totally idiotic. They're just managing the crisis in the world, especially with Ukraine and with the Middle East. It's just terrible. Absolutely terrible. Bunch of dipshits.
Up right now, it's not like we take a blind eye to what Iran is capable of doing and has shown their capability of doing in the region. It's not like we've demonstrated an unwillingness to defend Israel from threats in the region, including from Iran, if that happens. And we maintain that capability and that readiness to do so now.
Rebecca, what message does a rather milquetoast statement like that send to both Israel and Iran?
Well, first of all, John Kirby is doing it once again. He's talking about a fear of escalation, but escalation is a neutral term. What we don't want is the Iranians to escalate to win. What we do want is Israel to escalate sufficiently and only to the necessary degree so that it prevails. It wants the Iran regime to stop funding these militant proxies that continue to attack Israel. That's when the conflict will stop. So my hope is that Kirby will stop making an equivalence between the two sides, back Israel fully and say, listen, we're going to be behind them until they do exactly what they say they're going to do, which is take out the enemy. One last point. You see the Chinese and the Russians making similar comments, but taking the side of America's enemies, the side of Hamas, the side of the Iran regime. They're meddling, trying to provoke and get inside the United States' political election leading up to it, and also just trying to create a problem for the United States and Israel.
This all leads to the question, is the ceasefire basically off the table now in the coming weeks? I think we know the answer to that, Rebecca. It does seem like it is. Rebecca Heinrichs, thank you so much. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you. I'm Steve Ducey.
Before we go to the next video, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get products like ashwagandha root, really important to control your blood glucose levels. You know what? A big disease that happens in the United States is diabetes. And a big part of that is due to lifestyle and too many sugary foods and too much food and all this. So you need to control your blood glucose levels, because too much glucose in your bloodstream will actually aid your vascular system. And, so a way to mitigate that is to use ashwagandha. It'll help to control the blood glucose levels and reduce that inflammatory response that causes your arteries from aging as fast. So please go to the store and get the ashwagandha, right? You couple that with turmeric. Take it with turmeric. I do this every day. Turmeric is an antioxidant, but it will also bring down inflammation, all right? So by bringing down inflammation, you're taking the ashwagandha root, you're improving your cardiovascular health, you're bringing down that inflammatory response. Now, I have done videos on how to reverse arteriosclerosis. So, you know, I'll probably do another video on it. But the thing is that there are ways to reduce plaque in your vascular system. There are ways to control your blood glucose levels. There's ways to bring down the inflammation. And there's ways to reduce the oxidizing cascade, making foam cells that helps to create the plaque. LDL, when you have LDL in your system and it oxidizes, when LDL is oxidized, it's eaten up by macrophages and they turn it into foam cells that builds up plaque. Well, you can mitigate the oxidation stress of LDL by taking C60. So by taking C60, you're also improving your cardiovascular health. By bringing down the inflammatory response cascade, by taking turmeric, you're helping with your cardiovascular health. When you're controlling the blood glucose levels, you're helping with your cardiovascular health. You're slowing down the aging process. When you look at elderly people, they have a buildup of plaque and they have problems with blood flow, right? And blood pressure issues and lots of different things, right? If you have buildup of plaque or blood flow problems going to your kidneys, it causes a whole cascade of problems, right? And these are things that you start to see common in elderly people. Well, if you slow down those aging processes, you're actually going to have more vitality. You're not going to have as much of these problems. So take my advice, go to my store and get the turmeric and the ashwagandha that bring down inflammation and improve your cardiovascular health. It's really, I mean, most diseases in the United States that are chronic can be mitigated, if not eliminated, by just proper supplementation, proper diet, proper exercise, proper lifestyle changes. But what happens is that people go down a road and they just want to pop some sort of pharmaceutical, thinking that that's going to help them, but they just keep on getting worse and worse and worse. It's all about taking charge of your health. If you follow my lead, you're going to be better. Go to my store and get the vitamin D. Vitamin D is really important for gene expression and to apoptose cells that have been infected, and it helps to absorb calcium. So please go to my store and get vitamin D3. And lastly, vitamin C, really important for your skin and for your immune system. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose of it. Drink water every day, take the vitamin C and improve your skin and your immune system. All right, what I want to do is I want to play the analysis on you know what? I'm gonna jump to a different. I'm gonna jump to CBN. They just released a video here.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm from Graham. Ahead today, Iran's supreme leader reportedly ordering a direct strike on Israel after the death of a top Hamas leader in an attack in Tehran. But even as Israel prepares for retaliation for taking out terrorist leaders, Prime Minister Netanyahu has a warning for anyone who attacks the Jewish state. We're going to hear from a special envoy of the Israeli Foreign Ministry who explains why they are better prepared with better equipment to fight, if necessary, on multiple fronts. And while Israel is ready for war, the United States is not. An alarming assessment from defense experts. The U.S. is not prepared, even as it faces the biggest security threats since the end of World War II. And a cyber war with Russia or China could even knock out our power and water in our own homes. All those stories and more ahead today, right here on CBN Newswatch.
This is CBN Newswatch.
I want to begin this half hour in the Middle East, where the supreme leader of Iran has reportedly ordered a direct strike on Israel after the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Israel is bracing for that retaliation after the elimination of Haniyeh and a top commander of Hezbollah. But as CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is warning those who attack Israel will pay a steep price.
On Wednesday, the funeral procession of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh made its way to the streets of Tehran. While Israel has not claimed responsibility for his death, the New York Times reports Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei has ordered a direct strike on Israel in retaliation for the attack on Iranian soil. A senior Hamas leader said Haniyeh's death affects ongoing negotiations between the terror group and the Jewish state.
There is no point in talking about ceasefire negotiations amid bloodshed and assassinations.
The IDF also confirmed the death of Mohammed Deif, Hamas's #2 leader in Gaza, on July 13th. In an address to the nation Wednesday night, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel is prepared for any retaliation.
There are challenging days ahead of us. Since the attack in Beirut, threats have been heard from all sides. We are prepared for any scenario and will stand united and determined against any threat. Israel will exact a heavy price from any aggression against us on any front.
He emphasized Iran is the power behind all the threats.
Since the beginning of the war, I have conveyed that we are in a struggle against Iran's axis of evil. This is a war of existence against a stranglehold of terrorist armies and missiles that Iran wants to tighten around our necks.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said America will stand by Israel in the event of an attack.
If Israel is attacked, we certainly will help defend Israel. You saw us do that in April. You could expect to see us do that again.
Middle East expert Avi Nelamed expects a calculated retaliation by Iran.
I don't think that the Iranians are going to retaliate in the same way they did in April, but they will definitely look for some sort of like shocking, sort of speaking response that will be on the one hand powerful and send a message, but on the other hand will be very careful not to result in a dynamic that would actually result in an all-out war.
Nelamed adds Israel is sending a message with these twin strikes.
For me, the Israeli message to Iran is one that says we are willing, able, and ready to be engaging a whole-out war, which is not something that I think the Iranian regime actually is interested in at this conjunction, at this time.
These latest crises come as Israel marks the 300th day since the October 7th attack. On the front page of the Jerusalem Post, it reads in English and Hebrew, "Our hope is not yet lost."
Chris Mitchell joins us now to continue.
Ready to save? Get up to 20% off today during Raymore and Flanagan's Buy More, Save More sale. Save 10, 15, or 20% on pieces for every room.
Chris Mitchell joins us now to continue our coverage. Chris, Netanyahu says Israel is prepared for any retaliation by Iran. Does the Israeli government believe, as many analysts do, that Iran does not want an all-out war?
I think they suspect that Iran does not want a full-scale war, as well as Hezbollah, but they are prepared for any scenario. The analysts we talked to earlier said, believe Iran doesn't want that full-scale war for several reasons. They face a dilemma right now. First of all, how to respond to these strikes, both in Tehran and Beirut. First of all, they want to send us a message or retaliation that's strong enough to send at least a symbolic message, but also they don't want to send it too strong to go ahead and start a war. For example, one analyst told me that hitting Tel Aviv may be something that would start a war, but maybe they would hit an IDF base that would be less likely to escalate the situation. Ephraim, this is really not a science, but here in the Middle East, there's some of these unwritten rules of the current conflict that both sides try to keep it from a low scale, from escalating into a regional war.
Chris, how dramatic are the two strikes by Israel against Hezbollah's #2 man and Hamas's #1, along with taking out an Hamas military commander?
Well, it's huge, Ephraim. According to the New York Times, Iranians are in a state of shock. They, first of all, have to be embarrassed, actually having, their guests be executed or assassinated, as some say, on their soil. Deeply concerned about how their security has been so compromised. It also sends a strong message to Iran, really that you're not safe. And also, Ephraim, it really sends a message to the rest of the Middle East. First of all, that Israel has capability, and secondly, that has willingness to use its power. Same thing in Beirut. Precise intelligence. And what they did within 48 hours since the rocket.
And I think with Biden somewhat exiting quietly the presidency, there's no one really inhibiting Israel. I mean, obviously, Blinken, shuttles back and forth, but Israel is kind of not constrained by the Biden administration. I don't think anyone's running the Biden administration. I mean, there's no leadership, and it's either, it's a bunch of clowns running around, or someone is taking advantage of the situation and orchestrating, certain types of geopolitical affairs. I think it's probably more so that it's not coordinated and it's very chaotic than some puppet master trying to orchestrate events. But I do think that the Israeli government is taking advantage of this vacuum of leadership from the presidency.
And Magdal Shams that killed those 12 Jewish children, they went ahead and eliminated the man responsible for that attack. To do that, you really have to have been tracking him for months. You have to have boots on the ground, and it really sends a message to Hezbollah as well. Like, we know who you are, we know where you are, and we know when you're there. Just incredible intelligence by Israel in both of these strikes.
Avi Milliman says Iran and Hezbollah face a dilemma. What does he mean by that?
Well, as we said, I talked about what Iran and Hezbollah do. They face a dilemma how to respond to these strikes. They want to be strong enough to send a symbolic message at the very least, but they don't want to send too strong a message or retaliation to go ahead and start a war. They really need to thread the needle on this. We'll see what happens here in Israel and here in Jerusalem. We're kind of expecting what that kind of response is going to be. Some are saying, and there's been some reports that maybe for the next 3 days, starting tonight, there's going to be attacks on Israel. So it could be something small and symbolic, could be something large like April 13th, but we'll see. A strong message by Lloyd Austin as well, that he said that the U.S.
And this is important. This is important because it did seem that the United States government and the presidency was a little bit more engaged with the retaliation strike by the Iranians. This time, I'm not so sure that is the case. So does that mean more escalation? Does that mean less escalation? Does that mean less coordination with allied forces with Israel to help shoot down these drones and missiles? Who knows? But there may be a miscalculation that takes place that leads to further regional conflict. Now, I've been saying for a long time that Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran need to be destroyed. And the world is not going to be at peace until that happens.
And Israel, and that would be a caution to both Hezbollah and to Iran.
Netanyahu also talked about some accomplishments recently. What were the ones he mentioned?
Well, one we mentioned in our report, Mohammed Deif. He was Hamas's number 2 in the Gaza Strip. Israel had been trying to assassinate him for years, and they did that on July 13th. Also, a major strike against the Houthis. The Houthis, as you know, about 2 weeks ago, they sent a drone into the heart of Tel Aviv. Israel struck back by eliminating a huge oil depot and a port that the Houthis in Iran had been using to supply the Houthis with weapons. They targeted Hezbollah's number 2 there in Beirut just 2 days ago. And they've also eliminated thousands of Hamas terrorists in Gaza. They've destroyed Hamas's military infrastructure. They took over that key Philadelphia corridor along the Gaza-Egyptian border. They control the Rafah crossing. And all of these accomplishments were taken actually when most of the world was telling Israel not to do it.
Chris, Israel is a political issue for many here in the United States. How much does the American political scene influence the Middle East?
Well, we know we're all looking at what's going to happen in November, Ephraim, but here in the Middle East, it's of huge concern, and it's going to have a huge impact on which way the Middle East is going. One analyst said it changed dramatically after two recent events. The first was the attempted assassination on former President Trump. Some people interpret that Trump's increased his chances for election, to President Biden deciding not to run for re-election. So the analysis was after the assassination attempt, Trump's chances went up. And when Biden stepped down, he became less of an influence and he was considered weaker. So everyone in the Middle East is calculating whether it's going to be a Trump victory or a Harris victory. Moderate Arab nations like Saudi Arabia are watching closely. So is Iran and its proxies. And many people believe the region here in the Middle East is going to change one way or another in less than 100 days. We'll see what happens, but everybody here in the Middle East is watching and waiting to see what's going to happen in November.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Chris Mitchell reporting for us from Jerusalem.
Before
Appreciate your
they go
insights.
to another guest, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the B complex vitamin that I have. This is important, especially the first B vitamin, the first 5 B vitamins. B1, B2, B3, B4, B5 are really important for mitochondria, and it'll help with your metabolism. And again, like I said, with C60 and clarity factor and reducing inflammation, you're improving the cellular metabolism and the mitochondrial health. So it's really important to take B complex for energy and also cellular metabolism. So please go to the store and get the B complex. I have many, just go on the store, you can see here all the different B vitamins. Hopefully you can see it. And it's a very high quality vitamin complex. So please go to the store and get the B complex. It's important to get 3 cycles of REM sleep. So why? Well, it helps to consolidate memory, but it also helps to detoxify the body, and you're just more well rested when you wake up. So please go to the store and get the Good Night formula if you're not getting good sleep. If you're not getting good sleep, you are aging faster. All right, why? Well, one, you're not consolidating memory, and chronic deprived sleep will build up toxins that will lead to dementia. So you're going to have memory problems and you're going to have cognitive problems. So it's really important to get a good sleep. So please go to my store and get the Good Night formula if you're not getting good sleep. It has tryptophan, melatonin, and a series of other compounds that are beneficial for your sleep. So please go to the store and get the Good Night formula. Probiotics, very important. All right, I have a powdered version and I also have this veggie cap version. All right, taking a probiotic is really important to get your gut biome in its proper function so it can absorb nutrients and metabolize and have better communication between your gut and your liver, and also your gut and your brain. A lot of people don't realize that poor gut health not only affects metabolism and energy absorption, but it also affects mood and memory. So you need a good gut biome. So take my probiotic every day and improve your gut biome. Lignans, very important to boost up your immune system, especially since the aftershock of 2020. Cancers are up. The prevalence of cancers are up in the United States. It's really important to boost up your immune system. In addition, because of our lifestyles and because of the environment, the foods that we eat and all this stuff, there's endocrine disruption. And to improve your endocrine system, taking lignans will also help. This is for males and females, so it's really important to boost up your immune system and help with your hormonal health. So please go to the store and get the lignans. It's a powder, you mix it with your food or with water, and you take it every day. This is extremely important. I can't tell you enough times, get lignans to boost up your immune system. I said that there was going to be a higher prevalence of cancers in the aftershock of 2020, and that is exactly what happened.
And know that we back here are always praying for you and our team there on the ground in Israel. Coming up, so if a broader war does break out in the Middle East, how is Israel prepared to fight on multiple fronts? We're going to hear from an Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy about its state of readiness when we come back. World leaders. World leaders are concerned around.
I just want you're noticing a lot of people promoting gold and buy silver, and the world's going to collapse, and this is the only way to hedge, the economy and all that stuff. If gold and silver is so important, why are they selling it? Just think about that for a second. If they're saying that gold and silver is so important, why are people selling it to the masses to buy it? Because the people that are selling it realize that the currency that you give them for their gold and silver has more power. Now, you're going to have lots of people out there that are gold lovers and silver lovers, and they'll never understand what I'm saying. But just think about this. If something is so important and a collapse is imminent, why would they be selling such a precious commodity, supposedly, to you? Because the gold and silver market is a scam. But people buy into it because they think they can prep their way out of a crisis and all this stuff. No, take my advice. It's about taking care of your body and financially understanding on how to benefit from volatility. That's how you manage through crises and chaos. Not running, not hiding, not prepping for some sort of apocalypse. That won't work. But just how to navigate through it. And I'm telling you, buying gold little coins and silver coins and all that stuff is not going to help you. It's not going to help you. The total scam.
Out a military response following the assassination of Hamas leader, which may escalate into a broader conflict in the Middle East. On this week's edition of The Global Lane, Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy Fleur Hassan Nahum says, while Israel does not seek war, it is prepared for fighting on multiple fronts with better readiness and equipment than in the past.
Well, it's not ideal, as you can imagine. We didn't want any of this. On the 7th of October, we were brutally attacked from the south. And on the 8th of October, they started attacking us from the north, which is reminiscent of all the different wars that Israel has had to fight for its existence from 1948, when all the Arab armies around the region, all the neighboring Arab countries, attacked Israel in the hope of destroying Israel. But we have essentially Iranian proxies trying to destroy the state of Israel. And like in 48 and 67 and 73, when we were incredibly outnumbered, and in those days we were also out firepowered, we didn't have the military that we have today, and we won those wars. And if we have to fight a multi-front war, we will fight a multi-front war. We don't want any war at all. But if Israel is capable, absolutely. When you're fighting for your life, you give it everything you've got, and that's always been our secret.
Well, what must be done then to prevent an escalation?
Well, the first thing that Hezbollah should do is actually go to the resolution 1701, which was the UN resolution that was signed at the end of the 2006 war. All they have to do is really comply with an agreement they signed, and that is to go and take their troops behind the Litani River, which means it gives Israel a buffer zone between Hezbollah and our border. What's been happening since October 8th, we have had to mass evacuate. At the beginning, 100,000 people. Now it stands at 60, 70,000 people from the north, 10 kilometers from the border. And we've done something that we never had to do, and that is create a buffer zone within our country and not outside our country. We need to get back to the point that we return our displaced people back to their homes, and that we have enough of a buffer zone with Hezbollah to protect our communities in the north.
Well, we know that missile that killed those 12 children in Majal Shams was made in Iran, and Iran sent about 150 ballistic and cruise missiles directly from Iran against Israel back in April. We can't forget that. And now they're funding and have been continuing to fund and arm Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis against Israel and her allies, as you mentioned. So what needs to be done then to stop Iran from spreading this violence in the Middle East?
Well, first of all, the West has to accept that Iran is the problem. Remember, at the beginning of this administration, we had another attempt at cutting a deal with them. These people are genocidal jihadists. And so the last thing America has to do is try and get towards a deal with Iran. They should be isolated, we should have maximum pressure, and we should actually think about regime change in Iran, which is something that the Iranian people, 80% of the Iranian people, want regime change in Iran. And that's what we should be working towards. Because otherwise, everything else going on, whatever Israel's doing and whatever America helps us to do, is workable. Because everything goes back to Iran.
Well, how might these two assassinations then affect Israel's effort to get American and Israeli hostages back? I guess ceasefire talks are unlikely to proceed now.
Well, that's a good point. I'm not sure what's going to happen now to the hostage negotiations, which is very sad for those families who have been relentlessly advocating for a deal to get their loved ones home. So I'm not sure what happens now in terms of the hostage negotiations. But I still think that the pressure on Hamas now, with their number two political person, the guy who brings them the money, the guy that brings them international allies, that guy is now gone. I'm hoping that Yair Sinwar, who is the mastermind of all of this, will now feel the pressure, will now feel the isolation, in order to perhaps want to save his own neck and make a deal with Israel.
Well, it sounds like he wants to be a martyr. To American politics, it looks like Kamala Harris is going to be the Democrats' presidential nominee. How concerned are you about her stance on Israel, and what difference would selecting Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, a Jew, as her vice president make on her Israel policy?
Well, Josh Shapiro is a well-known Israel ally. He is somebody who is very happy to call himself a proud Zionist. And so I'm very happy that he's being considered. We need good people. We need people who understand who their real allies are. I believe that Vice President Kamala Harris made a mistake by not going to the speech of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. At that point, she's chose the fringe and not the center. And this is really, I think, ultimately not good for her electoral hopes. But I hope she understands that the real enemy here is Islamic fundamentalism. And it troubles me deeply when I saw a little clip of her 3 days ago speaking to a Muslim audience saying, I don't believe in Islamic fundamentalism. I don't believe in using that word. So I don't understand really what her stance is. I'm not sure anybody really understands what her stance is on foreign policy in the Middle East. But somebody like Josh Shapiro could really help me.
Okay, Fleur Hassan Nahum, Israel's Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, thank you for joining us today.
Also in this week's.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the new product that I have on the store. Is the olive leaf extract. This is important for your immune system and for cardiovascular health. All right. So it's going to bring down inflammation. Like I said, by bringing down inflammation, it's important for your immune system. So it's going to be more robust. But not just that, this will help with LDL levels. It'll bring down the LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So please go to the store and get this great product that I have. It's new, the olive leaf extract. Take it every day. I have partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've created an even better bar. This is made from essential oils from the Himalayas, and it's an all-purpose bar, skincare bar. You can put it on your skin, just rub it on your skin, and leave it on there. And what you'll notice is that, you do this on a regular basis. You can do it every day, but you can do it every other day or every third day. And you'll notice that your skin is smoother, and you'll notice that it's softer. It softens the skin, and it also smooths the skin. It will also help to heal wounds. So if you have a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn, it'll help to heal that. It'll help to reduce the itch from a bug bite, like a mosquito bite or something like that. If you pull a muscle and you're in muscle ache from a workout, rub it on the muscle, you'll get relief from that. So it's an all-purpose bar. It's a great bar. It's a great skincare bar. If you have eczema or psoriasis, rub it on there to relieve that situation. So please go to the store, get the Even Better bar. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It's all natural. We have also created these deodorants, also with essential oils from the Himalayas, in citrus and in peppermint, lavender, tea tree. These are for males and females, so get a few bars for your household. It's very high quality. It has no aluminum in it. It has no baking soda in it. Just essential oils from the Himalayas. It's very high quality. Use a deodorant every day, but it'll help to slow down. It'll help to soak up toxins and detoxify the body. It does it slowly. So, doing it every day, you're gonna start to notice that you're not just using a deodorant, but you're helping to detoxify your body. So I believe in the concept of dual purpose. Why? Because you're buying high quality items that are a little bit expensive, and that if you are given dual purpose, it lowers the actual real cost of the product because you can use it for multiple things. So go to the store and get a couple bars of this for your household. It's for males and females. I use the citrus. Many people get the peppermint, lavender, tea tree. I just don't like peppermint. It's okay. I can have my favorites, right? But please go to the store and get the deodorants that I offer. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of the video. And lastly, I have these applicator sets. So with the structural nano silver liquid, like the Max 14, the Max 35, or the structural nano silver solution, you just put that in the spritzer or the dropper or the nasal spray, and you can carry it with you in your bag and use it accordingly. So get a applicator set if you haven't already, and you'll be able to carry around easily those structural nano silver liquids from my store. Please go to the store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of this video.
So the global lane, a look at Nicolas Maduro's unlawful election victory in Venezuela and President Biden's changes to Title IX, allowing gender identity protection in U.S. schools to take effect today. We're going to bring you the latest on that. You can see it all on the global lane this evening on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app as well as YouTube. Still ahead, Israel may be ready for major warfare, but the United States is nowhere nearly as prepared, even as it's facing the biggest security threat since the end of World War II. We're going to bring you a look at this alarming story. It's coming up next. Is not ready, even as it faces the most serious security threats since World War II. The somber warning came from defense experts to senators on Capitol Hill this week, and a major war could even affect Americans in their homes. CBN's Dale Hurt has the story.
The heads of the Commission on the National Defense Strategy told the Senate Armed Services Committee that the United States is nowhere near prepared for the dangerous multi-threat environment it's facing.
The public has no idea how great threats are.
Commission Chairman Representative Jane Harman and Vice Chair Ambassador Eric Edelman issued a dire warning to the committee Tuesday.
The homeland, if there's a conflict, is not going to be a sanctuary anymore, and the first attacks will likely be in the cyber domain, and they will be incredibly disabling.
The public is essentially clueless about the massive cyber attacks that could be launched any day by our adversaries, not just nation states, but rogue actors as well.
The report warns a cyber war with China or Russia would be devastating. America's critical infrastructure would come under attack, possibly cutting off power, water, transportation, and financial systems, and shutting down the supply chain. The report states major war would affect the life of every American in ways we can only begin to imagine. The report echoes a warning FBI Director Christopher Wray gave Congress.
China's hackers are positioning on American infrastructure in preparation to wreak havoc and cause real-world harm to American citizens and communities if and when China decides the time has come to strike.
One of the things we might anticipate, for example, is if China decides to annex Taiwan or whatever euphemism they might use, they might engage in a major cyber attack here first, for which we are underprepared.
The Commission found the U.S. defense sector lacking in almost every area, including integrated weapons technology, platforms, and software. With recruitment levels for all branches lagging, America needs a larger fighting force, and the hearing discussed lowering physical standards for recruits and even instituting a draft.
We found that the joint force is at the breaking point of maintaining readiness today. Adding more burden without adding resources to rebuild readiness will cause it to break.
And with so many cyber threats, the Commission also said the Pentagon must find a way to somehow lure the best and brightest computer minds away from Silicon Valley and into national service. Dale Hurd, CDN News.
We're back with an encouraging word for your day ahead. Please stay with us.
All right. So that's the coverage of the latest and greatest on what's going on in the Middle East and how it's potentially going to ramp up a new level of escalation between Israel and Iran. So stay tuned. Right now, oil was elevated yesterday, but it's starting to go down a little bit today. Equities are down as of this recording. So we'll see what happens. Please subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe to all of them and click the notification button. That way you can see all my work, even if one of the channels gets a strike and I can't publish on them. So please subscribe to all of those. If you could, please share the links of my videos and ask your social media to follow me. I'd greatly appreciate it. You can follow me on X and on GETTR. Links are in the description of this video. And that way I can reach more people and help them navigate through these issues. All right. And especially help with improving the health of their body and of their family. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.